Hello guys, I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you guys for tuning in. As you can tell from the surround sound, the background noise, I am in my vehicle. And guys, I just wanted to speak with you about the importance of our relations with one another. I cannot speak on this enough. Our relationship with one another is really, really important. And, you know, when the Lord gave the parable in the Bible about when he separated the righteous from the unrighteous, he used a term, he had the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. So those who served the Lord will be referred as the sheep. Those who did what they wanted to do, will be on his left side. And he said to them, when I was naked, you gave me food. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I was hungry, you gave me food to eat. When I was in prison, you came and you visited me. And both the righteous and the unrighteous said, Lord, when did we do this? The righteous said, Lord, when did we clothe you? When did we feed you? When did we visit you? And the Lord said, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. And those who did not, who the Lord said, you did not clothe me, you did not feed me, you did not give me food, or you did not visit me, they said to him, Lord, when did we do this? This is what the unrighteous said. And he said, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. And so, guys, there are people that will think literal clothes, literally putting food, literally visiting. And I believe those can also be literal in some cases. But also, guys, in other ways, people may be mentally, emotionally, physically, mentally and emotionally and spiritually hungry, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually imprisoned, you know. And people will leave them, will just be really indifferent to them. And so the Lord told them, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. When the Lord made the parable in Matthew 7, where he said, many is going to say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy? Didn't we do miracles? Didn't we do wonderful things in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you, you who practice lawlessness. So it's not about our works in the sense of how much church attendance, how many good deeds, quote unquote, good deeds you think you may be doing. But it's really going to boil down to how we treat people. How we treat people, and whether or not we continue to sin and do certain things deliberately and refuse to let the Lord lead us and help us. No matter what it is that you and I may struggle with or go through, we don't have the excuse to say, well, I was too weak for that. It just overpowered me so much. Because then basically you're saying God's power was not enough to help you. You know, there's people who believe that once you're saved, you're always saved. They play on words. And so they may be, well, once you get saved, your salvation can never be taken away. And I would say, I will agree with you in the sense of the Lord never takes it from you. When God saves your soul, he does not take it from you. He's not going to give me back my salvation. No, but you can lose it. You can lose it. You can choose to do certain things where God saves your soul and gives you the opportunity. He's willing to take you on a journey of learning and overcoming the flesh. There are people who can refuse it and reject him. There are people who reject the Holy Spirit. They can deny God. Because no matter how much truth he tells them, they want to do things their own way. That's exactly what the narrative was pretty much in the New Testament. The truth, the word, opportunity for salvation was standing there before their faces, but they countered it and they believed what they wanted to believe. So, but then there are people who literally believe that I'm saved, then I can sin as much as I want and I'm going to go into heaven. And they often say, so in other words, you're saying that God's sacrifice on the cross was not good enough to save me. No, not only was it wonderful, not only was the sacrifice on the cross more than sufficient to save us, but it is more than sufficient to help us to stop sinning. His grace and his blood was shed, and it is sufficient enough to help us in those daily struggles and the things that we may struggle with. He is able to help us overcome and defeat that. But people will argue with you about that. That's the power of sin. Sin is like crack cocaine. It will make you think crazy, make you delusional. It becomes that important that sin can become many people's precious. So they're going to defend it and But what I'm saying, guys, is it's going to boil down to, when we stand before God, it's about whether or not we allowed him to pull us out of our habits and our little ways and sins. And the other thing is how we treat people. It's not about whether or not you attended church a lot. There's nothing in the Bible that was like, oh, I'm pleased because you attended the synagogues and you did this and you did that. Because anybody can do that. You got to understand that anybody could walk into church and go to church. Anybody could sing. Anybody could sing. A person who does not serve the Lord can sing gospel music. A person who does not know the Lord can speak and motivate people and even bring tears to someone and where they want to change and they want to do better. Anyone can do that. Anyone can give to the poor, because there are plenty of people that do that. There are philanthropists who are Satanists. There are philanthropists who are wicked and evil, but they like to help. They have a heart for people in other aspects. There are pedophiles who are the biggest contributors to many organizations. So anyone can do that. But there is truly a difference, guys, between those type of works and things that's anybody can do it, and truly serving God and being obedient to him and doing what he tells us to do. Anyone can be nice, but if they're not subject to God, then there's a difference. There are people who believe in God, but they don't believe in everything that he says. So they pick and choose certain things, and they feel like, well, God, I don't believe in this, but I do that. And they think that they can bargain with him. But if you're disobeying him, you're disobeying him. And so what I'm saying is, all that work stuff and everything, as far as, oh, you're going to church and you're doing this and you're active in the church and you're doing wonderful things in your community, God is looking at your relationship with him personally, and he's also looking at how we are dealing with and how we treat one another in our everyday human relationships. The decisions that we're making, are we putting him in the midst of it? Because truly, a lot of people, a lot of God's people who say that they're serving God, they don't care about one another. They just don't. They don't care. It's one of two things. They don't care, or there's others that they enter in, and then they're trying to, siphon out all the grace and mercy out of people and taking them for granted. But guys, it's truly going to boil down to our relationships. And there are lots of people who that they say that they're believing in the Lord, but they are very partial. They're not fair. they are partial. Their goodness, their respect, their consideration to others truly depends on what they look like and their status. There are many people that they give, but they give to certain people. They give with a certain purpose. They give because, hey, I want to get a tax break. There are people who give because they want to be seen. There are many believers who they pick and choose who they're going to be nice to. They're going to be nice to individuals who they will benefit from. If somehow they're going to gain something out of being nice to this individual, then they're going to be nice to them. They'll be kind if they have, if there's something in it for them. And then they pick and choose who they want. And, you know, it's just in my heart, this comes up a lot, that there are a lot of people who are of Asian descent. You'll be considered Indian, all right? And you grew up in that caste system. And would you believe that there are still people who they gave their life to the Lord and they say that they're saved and they're Christians, but they're still looking at other people and saying, no, you're untouchable. So their church will only have those who are considered to be, their church is only going to have the people who would be considered acceptable. But they don't have any of the, I think they're called the Dalits. They don't have them in their church. You're like, no, you are untouchable. And yeah, so those type of behaviors are going on. There are plenty of people who are still very racist. They don't believe they have to have respect for someone who is of a different skin tone. There are racist black people who are racist against their own skin tone. It's not just white people that's racist. There's black people who are racist. They're racist against white people. And then they're also racist against their own people. There is this whole thing that happens between brown people where, oh, you black and I'm light and I'm cocoa and I'm caramel and I'm mocha. That is racism. And there are many complaints of racism around black people, but a lot of black people use the N-word more than anybody else. And they go, oh, it's different because it's me. It's worse because it's you. It is foolishness. If you're comfortable as a people calling yourselves that name, don't complain when other people do it. Because it does not go. It is used a lot among black people. And it's a term of endearment. No, it is not. When slaves were being diced up and cut up, and when men were being sodomized in front of their sons and their wives, that word was being used. It is not a nice word. But yet there's racism. There's hatred among black people for one another. It's not all, but that is very common. You know, I grew up in the West Indies. Well, I was born there. And I was there until I was 8. And then I left. But everything in my household was still full on Jamaican culture, everything. We were always surrounded by Jamaican people. My mom and dad, they speaking Jamaican, which is really, it's patois, but it's English. It's broken up with a heavy accent. But it was not common for Jamaicans to go around calling each other the N-word. It's just don't happen. I'm not saying that we don't have our share of things that we do. That's not right, but it's not that, guys. But nevertheless, there's still that across the board, that lighter, I'm darker. People will get so caught up because of the texture of their hair, the texture of their the hue of their skin. These things are super important to them. And they are going to base how they treat people based on how they look. People will think that they're better The word of God says the heart of man is desperately wicked. Who shall know it? And it talks about the wickedness of man and how cold people are getting, because we are in times where people are they are so far removed from the Lord and in their mind that they will think my hair makes me a better person than you. My skin makes me better than the next person. My eye color makes me better. What I'm driving makes me better. What I'm wearing makes me better. So literally a shirt and a vehicle, someone will say, I'm better than you. And they're not checking their character. And that's another video all in itself. But I want to talk with you guys about the importance of our human relations and how we're treating people. You cannot decide that someone, because they're poor, because they're of a certain race, because they have a certain race, this is what will be the deciding factor in how you're going to treat people and how you're going to deal with them. There are people who are like, hey, this person is housekeeping. This person takes out the garbage. They're not worthy of a good morning. I don't need to turn my eyes towards them and say anything. There are people who mistreat the poor. But if you read in the Bible, you will see that the Lord is very displeased when the poor, the widow, the fatherless, the foreigner, he does not like when they are mistreated, because they are his creation. You may not like, and you may say God's creation is ugly. You may say, or some people may say, God's creation is too dark. God's creation is flawed. Your nose is too big. You're too white. You're too pale. You are too skinny. You're not built the way that the world decides is beautiful. But who are we to decide what's beautiful? Truly, guys, it's sin. It's the love of God is not in many people, because they look at people and through your eyes, you may say someone is ugly. This person is unattractive. It just happens. I'm not going to say I haven't looked at someone and be like, oh, we've all done it. But I asked God to change that. But it does not make me mistreat anyone. I've never felt I want to mistreat you. But yet in our lives, there have to be moments that we have been rude. We have been inconsiderate to someone. And that's why it's important that we are led by the Spirit of God and allowing Him, when we feel that check, we do things correctly. We correct ourselves. We apologize if we need to apologize. Too often what is happening today, guys, is there's a sense of entitlement, a sense of there are people who believe that they're better than other people because they are wealthy, and they may not be wealthy in all cases. They could be middle class. So the middle class believe that they're better than, the white, I want to say the blue collar workers, if I'm saying it correctly. They believe they're better than them, and so they'll treat them accordingly. They believe they're better than other people because of their race and what they've been taught. And they believe that they're better than these individuals. I don't need to treat you right. I don't need to talk to you. I don't need to consider you. I don't need to say, excuse me. I don't need to hear your cause. There are many people who are in positions where they can help other people. But because they're influenced by the majority, either they're influenced by the majority or they have their own they have their own mindsets about certain people, they will not help them. You have judges, you have the lawyers, you have politicians, you have certain type of people who are in power, pastors, people who say that they believe in God, they attend church and they are well known and they're on boards in the churches and they're doing things in the community. These individuals, you will find that they would very much treat someone, neglect to help someone, neglect to give them the service that they need, the protection that they need, because of what they look like and because of their own personal prejudices. And guys, this is not of God. The Bible tells us, if you look in the book of Deuteronomy, You'll see so many things in there where if we follow those things, life will be so much, I'm not going to say life will be better because things will still happen, but the considerations that we should have for one another will be so, if we follow that plan, the world would be a lot better than what it is. But the Lord talks about not treating the fatherless wrong. So people who wants to have a certain mindset about widows and maybe those who the dad's not at home. He tells us not to have, to hate the poor, not to mistreat the foreigners. Foreigner is someone that's different. Anybody that's different from you, someone that's in your country or in your nation, don't mistreat those people just because you have the power to do it. Don't mistreat a person that's different from you. He hates that. He hates when people oppress the poor because that's very common. And guys, as I said, when those in the Bible speaks about those who stood before him and they were like, Lord, when did we mistreat? When did we not clothe you? When did we not feed you? When did we not visit you? When you did it to the least of these, you've done it to me. When you did it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it to me. That's the word. So therefore, we must be very careful in how we want to engage with people and the things that we do to people. People need to be very careful about how they treat someone who they feel that is the least of them and who's below them. Because God watches that. He cares about that. The Lord is not paying attention to how much work we're doing in the church. He's looking at, how did you treat that cashier today? How did you treat that person that came in your restaurant? How did you treat that person that came in your business? How do you treat that person that works with you? How did you treat that man because he has I don't know the name of it, but he has something on his head. He's wearing a turban or whatever. How did you treat that person? What did you immediately begin to think about these individuals? How did you treat that black person? How do you treat that white person? How do you treat that person that you feel you're upper class white and this is poor white trash? How did you treat this person? You're upper class black and you think this is just a black person from the hood. The Lord looks at all of those things. How do you treat this person when they were in their worst state, when they told you their business, when they shared their struggles with you, and when their shame was exposed? How did you behave towards this person? How do you behave when you find out a scandal comes out on a person? God looks at all these things, guys. And it is human nature to want to do certain things or to recoil from certain individuals, but that is why we must depend on the Lord to lead us and to guide us and to help us. It's only through the Spirit of God that there can be change. It's only through the Spirit of God that there can be this sort of awareness for someone else. If we're trying to do things in our flesh and trying to do things our own way, we're always going to mess up. Because most time, if you're doing things in your flesh, there's an ulterior motive. It's going to be limited. It's not going to be genuine. It's not going to last. Because there's only so much you can do if it's not coming from your heart. We must be very careful how we're treating other people. The Lord is going to ask us about our human relations. Human relations in what way? How we treat people when they're down. How we treat people when they're out. How we deal with people, what your mom and dad may have told you, our mom and dad told us about certain people, what our culture and society said about certain individuals. While some things may be true, every person is not that way. You can't paint everybody with the same brush. At the same time, human relationship will be the people that the Lord told you were bad, the people that the Lord told you they were evil, the people that the Lord showed you was going to take you down a path. Did you listen to him? Did you listen to him when he showed you the danger, when he showed you this person that's going to diminish you emotionally, physically, mentally, verbally? He told you, and did you listen to him? Because sometimes people get it confused. Well, the love of God and the Lord caring and having God's love means, oh, I stay with this person. Having God's love means I disobey God and stay in something that's toxic and wrong. No, not necessarily. And so how do we have this balance to know how to treat people? How are we going to have this balance to know how to care, when God wants us to pull the plug, and when God says separate, when God tells us to separate, and when God tells you to move away from people, he's not going to allow you to hate them. And at the same time, guys, going beyond what you were raised to believe, going beyond what you think about yourself, and not allowing yourself to get caught up in pride and thinking you're better than people and treating them accordingly and being very indifferent towards them. These are the things God is going to be talking to us about. He's going to ask us about. These are the things that will stand before him to answer. Human relationships are very important. And the only way we can overcome any sort of racism, sexism, prejudice, mindsets, indifference, is to ask the Lord to help us, to guide us and to lead us by the power of the Holy Spirit, so that our hearts will be changed. Because I fear that there are lots of people who are doing things from a mindset of simply logistics and mechanics. Oh, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do some good deeds. This. But within themselves, their character and their heart and their spirit is unchanged. All right, guys.